Well, you're most welcome to today's talk. It's Wednesday, the 30th of June. Some new research out that is indicating that my theory about inadvertent intravascular administration, that is giving the vaccine into a blood vessel, might be causing some of the complications we're seeing. And the evidence here relates to the adenovirus vector vaccine. That's the Oxford vaccine. Presumably that's going to be the case, also going to be true for the Janssen Johnson & Johnson vaccine as well. Now, this is the risk. Let me show you the risk here. It's on this screen. So the risk is that the injection is given into a blood vessel in the deltoid muscle. That is the risk that we're worried about. So inadvertent intravascular administration. Now, I'm going to give you the evidence for this now. Thrombocytopenia. So thrombocytopenia is, penia is lack of. Thrombocytes are the platelets, so it's a lack of platelets in the blood. Right. Our work contributes to the understanding of thrombocytopenia syndrome and highlights accidental intravenous administration as a potential mechanism for post-vaccine thrombocytopenia syndrome. So there you go. I mean, this is a direct quote. Our work contributes to the understanding of TSS and highlights accidental intravenous injection as a potential mechanism for thrombocytopenia syndrome. Hence, safe intramuscular injection with aspiration prior to injection could be a potential preventative measure when administering adenovirus-based vaccines. So exactly what we've been saying on this channel for months now. Months we've been saying this. Because when you go to get your injection, the nurses that give it, or the people that give it, it's not as big as this, but they're told to inject it into the deltoid and then to give it straight away without drawing back to make sure they're in a blood vessel. Now, if you stick that into the muscle like that and then inject it, you will never, ever know whether you're in a blood vessel or not, because you'll pull it out and you can't see into the muscle. You haven't got X-ray eyes. So that is the problem. So we are not aspirating. But of course, if we do aspirate, and I've shown you this before, but I'll just do the demonstration briefly again. Suppose that's the blood vessel in the muscle. You stick your needle in, and instead of going into the muscle, you go into the blood vessel. When you pull back, when you aspirate, it's immediately obvious, because you get blood coming back into the syringe, and then you know not to inject because you would be giving an inadvertent intravascular, whether it's arterial or venous administration, instead of into the muscle where it's supposed to go. So, safe intramuscular injection technique, exactly as we've been saying, not recommended by the World Health Organization, not recommended by the UK, recommended that what we have formally said is this question should be answered by these authorities, and I will show you a formal answer in a minute. Consistent results with mice and human platelets. Vaccines are routinely administered intramuscularly and trigger immune response, mainly in the draining lymph nodes, which of course are under the armpit. A bit to go on. Based on our findings that adenoviral vaccines bind to blood platelets, we hypothesize that accidental intravenous injection of adenoviral vaccine might lead to platelet adenovirus aggregate formation with platelet activation. In other words, you would get clumps of platelets being clumped together by the vaccine if it went into the blood directly. The decline in platelet count was dose-dependent and correlated directly with adenovirus-positive platelets circulating in the blood 1 hour after the injection. In other words, the more of the vaccine that goes into the blood, the greater the problem. Intravenous but not intramuscular injection of the AstraZeneca type of vaccine results in a strong increase in platelet adenovirus aggregates. I mean, these are direct quotes from the paper. It's pretty hard to argue with them. Guidance published by Public Health England says this: It actually says there is no need to pull back on the plunger to aspirate before the plunger is depressed to release the vaccine into the muscle because there are no large vessels in the recommended injection sites. Now, this is Nadeem Zahawi, the vaccine minister. Look at it. It says there are no large blood vessels at the recommended injection site. So firstly, he doesn't know that it's not being done right. Then he says there's no large blood vessels. Is that true? Well, when you want to know about anatomy, you get this book out, Gray's Anatomy, 41st edition, which I think is still the latest edition. And you look up the relevant section. This is where you go for your anatomy definitive text. And then you look at the relevant diagram. And here we see one. So here we see the deltoid muscle around here. This is high up in the deltoid muscle, but here we see this bundle, and these dots are arteries and veins. And anatomical variations means that these could sometimes go down further. So Nadeem Zahawi's letter says this: there is no need to pull back on the plunger, aspirate before the plunger is depressed to release the vaccine into the muscle because there are no large blood vessels at the recommended injection site. No, that's what he says. But I've just shown you Gray's Anatomy points them out. Why don't they just eradicate this variable instead of sending fancy letters from the Department of blah, 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 to MPs and... I think it's Nadeem Zahawi, look, there it is. You see that? Yeah. That's what he said. No, seriously, if you can think of some way to get these blinking politicians to listen to us, then do so. Now, if they consider this, if they consider it, they take it to all their scientists, all their doctors, all their clever nursing leaders, and they say, no, this is rubbish, carry on doing it the way you're doing it, then fine. But this should be considered, and it grieves me, really, honestly, it grieves me that it won't be, because this is not some silly academic video. These suggestions I'm making to these people in power, they have the power to issue these edicts that can save, in my view, people's lives.